Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Weigh In podcast. We're doing our first episode of Meet the Fighters, which for a lot of you new fans, hopefully this will help. For a lot of the OG fans, I don't really know if this will help you too much, but it'll kind of give you a recap of who the ranked fighters are. Obviously, this is the first edition in the series. We're going to go smallest to largest, beginning with the women's divisions. So, first, we are taking a look at the strawweights, the 115-pound weight class and the women's division. We are going to look at the entire top 15, meet the entire top 15, and the champion as well. So, of course, kicking things off, we're going to go from the lowest to the highest. So, we're beginning with the number 15 ranked strawweight in the world, and that is Alexia Thainara. She currently holds a 13-1 record, fighting out of Minas Gerais, Brazil. Some good notable wins for her: Loma Lookboonmee, the Muay Thai specialist, and of course Molly McCann, the English meatball. Her only pro loss came in 2019 to Bruna Brazil. That was on the regional scene at Thunder Fight 20 in 2019. She has only won since then, winning her next 11 fights. 100% of her wins come by submission, so she is an incredible submission artist. I should say 100% of her finish wins come by submission. That's a little bit of a typo. That's my fault. She has won a few by decision, but 100% of her finish wins come by submission. She's also only 28 years old, so still a lot of room to grow for her. Kind of remains to be seen on what the ceiling really is for her. She was originally booked to fight Fatima Klein on the Contender Series, which we'll get to her in a little bit. Would have loved to have seen that fight go down, but maybe as they work their way up the rankings, we'll get to see that bout inside the UFC. Moving on to the number 14 contender, we have one of the best veterans still hanging around at 115 pounds, and that is Angela Overkill Hill. Now, the reason they call her Overkill is because she fights a lot. She is incredibly active. She fought 3 times in 2025, only twice in 2024, which is low for her standards. 3 well, twice in 2023 did have a fight cancellation. And then the big one was 4 times in 2022, 5 times in 2021. I mean, you get the idea. She is incredibly active. Um, 18 and 16 record. That record definitely doesn't tell the story. You see that a lot in MMA with a lot of these records. You have these people like Angela Hill that just they fight everybody. And I mean, you look at some of her losses, it's to the absolute best. I mean, modern day, you have girls like Fatima Klein, Yasmin Lucindo, Tabitha Ricci. She's lost to Mackenzie Dern, Vina Jandiroba, Amanda Lemos. I mean, these losses are nothing to be ashamed of. Yan Xiaonan, Jessica Andrade, Ronda Marcos. I mean, the list goes on. But some very good notable wins as well against women like Luana Pinheiro, Denise Gomes, Lupe Godinez, Loma Lookboonmee again, and Marina Moroz. She is the former Invicta Strawweight champion. She won it back in 2016 against Lavinia Souza, gave up the title to come to the UFC. 88% of her losses do come by decision. She goes to decision a lot. Now, she does have very good striking as well, so she has gotten a few finishes throughout her career, I believe 5 by way of TKO and 1 by sub. The only way that she's lost by finish is submission, but the rest of her losses all come by decision. And a lot of those have honestly been very, very close decision losses as well that Angie nearly won. You hate to see it for her. You hate to see her lose some of these split decisions, but sadly, Angela Overkill Hill is 40 years old, so we're not going to see her around for much longer. Just trying to enjoy her while she's here. And for the time being, she still has her spot in the rankings at 115 pounds. So, following Angela Hill, we move to the 13th ranked contender, and that is the up and coming Denise Gomes, who we mentioned Hill did beat. But Denise Gomes is only 25 years old. Actually, what's funny is I typed this on December 29th. Her birthday is December 30th. So she is actually turning 26 years old today as I'm recording this. I don't know if this will get uploaded the same day, but at time of recording, happy birthday to Denise Gomes. That's awesome. That's actually hilarious. She does have a couple good notable wins over Tisha Pennington and Karolina Kowalkiewicz, but again, she's just very young. Only 8 fights into her UFC career, so she just hasn't really had that high level of competition. She did lose to Angela Hill and Loma Lookboonmee. No loss to be ashamed of course, but she is at present on a 14-fight winning streak. Her last win in November over Tisha Pennington, and if I'm not mistaken, that was going to be Tisha Pennington's final fight. Um, She does have 2 bonuses throughout her UFC career, which is very impressive. Her most impressive win was probably a 20-second knockout win over Yasmin Jauregui in 2023, and Jauregui at the time was a very hyped up prospect, and Denise Gomes stole all of that hype. All of her finishes, at least in well, yeah, all of her finishes have come by knockout or TKO. She does not have a submission win on her record. She's also won 5 by decision. And again, like I said, she just turned 26 today, so very young, a lot of potential for Denise Gomes, and I can't wait to see what's next for her. Now, coming in at number 12, this is one of the prospects in this division that I like the most, and in my opinion, has the coolest nickname in this division, and that is the Archangel Fatima Klein. She is currently 9-1, just hasn't really had a lot of action, but of course, she's only 25 years old as well. So, a lot of very, very young fighters in this division. A couple solid notable wins over Angela Hill and Victoria Dudakova. She was a two-weight world champion in Cage Fury FC at strawweight and flyweight. That was back in 2024 that she became a double champion, won her first title in 2023, and then vacated those titles to come to the UFC. Her only career loss was to Jasmine Jasdavicius, who is a top 10 contender, a weight class up at 125 pounds. She actually did make her UFC debut at 125 and then dropped down to 115 in her next fight. And it has been 3 straight wins for Fatima Klein since then. She does have an extensive submission grappling career, even winning a title at MJJ. But she has really improved her striking. Her striking looks very good. She trains very closely with Aaron Blanchfield. I'm not sure if they're friends or exactly what the deal is there, but she trains very, very closely with Aaron Blanchfield, who is a very dominant contender at 125 pounds as well. And like I said, only 25 years old, so still a lot of room to grow for Fatima Klein and a lot of exciting matchups for her as she moves forward in the strawweight division. Now, coming in at number 11, we've got another veteran, and that is Amanda Ribas, the Brazilian. She's 12-7, and sadly, she probably is on the downside of her career. But during her prime, she did have some very impressive, notable wins against Luana Pinheiro, Viviane Araújo, Vina Jandiroba, Paige Van Zant, Randa Marcos, and the current champion, Mackenzie Dern. Now, Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas did rematch, and Dern got the better of her. That was actually this year, January 11th. That was UFC Fight Night. That was a main event against Mackenzie Dern. But she was the former Jungle Fight and Max Fight strawweight champion back in the regional scene. She was also a champion at the IMMAF World Championships in 2014 in the amateur ranks. As I mentioned, she is kind of on the downside of her career, a 3-fight losing streak, but her losses are absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Rose Namajunas, Mackenzie Dern, and Tabitha Ricci, all incredibly talented fighters. Namajunas, of course, the former champion of this division, and Dern, the current. She is only 32 years old, so she does have time to turn it around, but it does seem like her better days might be behind her. Time will tell, but especially with the fighters ranked below her being so talented and so young, I do sadly find it difficult for Amanda Ribas to stay at the top. And it's really sad because I absolutely love her. If you've never heard an Amanda Ribas interview, go do yourself a favor. She is one of the most incredible personalities in the sport. Hopefully, she can turn things around in the coming years. Now, cracking the top 10, and this is a prospect that I'm very excited about, and that is the Canadian Jillian Robertson, carrying on the proud red hair tradition for the Canadian women established by Randa Marcos in this same division. Jillian is 16-8, but again, that record does not tell the full story. She began her UFC career at 125 pounds. She was constantly outsized. She went 9-5 at 125 pounds, so still with some really good wins. But then she bumped down to 115 pounds, and it went exactly how you would expect based off the way I'm talking. She lost her UFC strawweight debut to Tabitha Ricci. However, turned it around. She's won 4 in a row. Notable wins for her include Marina Rodriguez, my apologies, Luana Pinheiro, Michelle Watterson, Veronica Hardy, and Molly McCann. She is a multiple-time champion in the amateur ranks. Won, I think, 4 different titles, if I remember right. And she has exceptional grappling, as I mentioned before. 56% of her wins come by way of submission. That is 9 of her 16 wins She is just an incredibly crafty grappler. Her jiu-jitsu is incredible, and she's got a very exciting fight coming up against Amanda Lemos. She was originally booked to fight Yasmin Lucindo in December. When Lucindo withdrew, they put in Amanda Lemos, and I think it was either the day of the fight or the day before. Lemos actually had an unfortunate medical issue and had to withdraw. But that fight has been rebooked for March 14th. That is a UFC fight night in Las Vegas at the UFC Apex. I'm very excited for that fight because Jillian Robertson seems like she is an oncoming force at 115 pounds, and I cannot wait to see what she looks like against a top 5 contender. Now, coming in at number 9, we actually have a former champion of this division, and that is Jessica Andrade Batistaca, the pile driver. Andrade is one of the legends of female MMA, a 26-15 record. She's been in the UFC since 2013. That is 12 years on the roster, going on her 13th year in the UFC. Her notable wins, it's a lengthy list, and these have some incredible stories behind them. Marina Rodriguez, the current champion Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Lemos, Caitlin Serminara, who's been a top contender at 125 pounds for years. The former champion Rose Namajunas, who that was who Andrade beat to win her title, slammed Rose on her head. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Tisha Pennington, Claudia Gadelha, Angela Hill. And these last two are crazy. So Jessica Andrade, remember, this is 115-pound rankings that we're looking at. She has a win over Larissa Pacheco, who was actually a PFL champion at 155 pounds. Yes, you heard that right, 155 pounds. And Jessica Andrade, a 115-pound contender, beat her. And also has a win over Raquel Pennington, who was the former champion in the UFC at 135 pounds. Now, there is a slight backstory to that. When Andrade joined the UFC in 2013, the 135-pound division was the only female division that they had. There was no other option for the females. So Andrade did had to begin her UFC tenure at 135 pounds, but the fact that she's this small and competing in a division like this now, and she actually beat those women back in the day is just crazy. She is also, I believe, the only female in the UFC to have wins in all 3 female weight classes. That is just bananas. And she really is one of the few females that has true elite knockout ability, that true one-punch power. Now, she is 34 years old, so still relatively on the younger side. Usually, once fighters hit 35 is kind of when they start hitting their sharp decline. But she does have a lot of miles on the tank. I mean, 30 fights just in the UFC alone and 41 in her MMA career total. That is a lot of miles, and she has taken some losses. So Andrade probably not going to see the title picture again, but she is still a very difficult contender to deal with and never a fighter you want to see on the other side of the cage from you. Coming in at number 8, we've got another exciting up and comer. Not quite sure what her ceiling is going to be, but for now, she has got a rocket ship strapped to her back, sending her to the top, and that is the baby shark Tabitha Ricci. She's only 12-3, again, very young in terms of her MMA career. She's only 30 years old as well. Some very good notable wins over Amanda Hebus, Angela Hill, Tisha Pennington, and as I mentioned, the only woman in the UFC's 115-pound division to beat Jillian Robertson. Her last win over Amanda Hebus was nasty too. It was violent, vicious elbows, vicious ground and pound. And when that elbow landed, Hebus just looked lost. She does have a very well-rounded skill set, but something to keep an eye on her is she is the smallest fighter in the division. I don't really know exactly what her ceiling is gonna be because of that. I mean, she's very, very strong for her size. I just don't know if she's gonna have the true physicality to keep up with the top fighters in this division when she gets into the top 5. I mean, she does have losses already to Yan Xiaonan and Lupe Godinez. We'll get to them in a little bit. But something that's very impressive, kind of a little interesting factoid that I remember from Tabitha Ricci, was she made her UFC debut at 125 pounds against Manon Fior. And Manon Fior is, I believe, ranked number 2 at 125 pounds right now. That is a horrible fighter to make your debut against. So it's good that she wasn't deterred by that. She was undefeated going into that fight against Manon Fior, just kept going, and now she is a true legit threat at 115 pounds. Moving up to the number 7 contender, and this is one of the most impressive contenders in this division because I believe she is the youngest, only 23 years old, and that is Yasmin Lucindo. We've seen a lot of Brazilians in this division. Lucindo continues the trend. Now, at 23 years old, to have 24 fights, that is crazy. She has a lot of experience for her age, and that is really going to help her in the long run. She has some good notable wins against Angela Hill, Marina Rodriguez, and Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Does have a loss against Yasmin Yargi in 2022 and Amanda Lemos in 2025, but Lemos is not a loss to be ashamed of. She's the former SFH flyweight champion as well, dropped down to 115 pounds upon coming to the UFC. And she does have above average KO power. 44% of her wins have come by way of TKO. She does have some submission wins as well, but also has a couple losses by submission, but has never been finished with strikes. So even though she has a lot of experience, not a lot of wear and tear on the tank for Yasmin Lucindo, and with her only being 23 and already ranked number 7 in this division, with the experience that she has, I really feel like she's going to turn into a very dangerous contender in her late 20s. Yasmin Lucindo, definitely an impressive fighter to keep an eye on. Getting towards the elite of the top 5, but before we get there, we have one more contender to get to, and that is the number 6 contender, the Mexican Lupi Godinez. You'll see her called Lupita Godinez, but the fans just know her as Lupi. She is 14-5, some great notable wins on her resume as well. Jessica Andrade, Tabitha Ricci, Cynthia Calvillo, Loma Lookboonmee, and Vanessa Demopoulos among the most notable. Former BTC and LFA strawweight champion, LFA, one of the better regional promotions. She only had that one fight in that organization, and it was winning the title. She has only had 3 fights in her entire career end in a finish. They've all been wins, which is a good thing. You don't wanna be on the losing side of a finish. However, she just doesn't really have that true finishing ability. Her last 5 fights have all gone to decision. So that's something you definitely wanna keep an eye on with Loopy. I mean, I've watched her fight. She does have some pretty heavy hands considering she's never finished a fight by knockout. But just something to keep an eye on. When you get into that top 5, you really do need to have an ability to finish a fight when the opportunity presents itself. Now, she did have a couple losses in the UFC to Vina Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern, which we will get to those 2 ladies in a little bit, but back-to-back losses to them, and those have aged like a fine wine. She got back on the horse with 2 wins back-to-back over Julia Pilastri and Jessica Andrade. So she's back back on the right track, and she's someone that a lot of people feel has championship potential. Personally, I haven't really seen enough to quite crown that yet, and especially with this division having so many young and hungry fighters behind her, it's not gonna be easy to win a title in this weight class, but Lupi Godina is definitely a girl to keep an eye on in the future. So now we break into that illustrious top 5, and we begin with Amanda Lemos, another Brazilian, and a former title challenger in this division as well. She is 15-5-1 as a pro. Notable wins include Yasmin Lucindo, Mackenzie Dern, Marina Rodriguez, Michelle Watterson, and Angela Hill. She was the former bantamweight champion at Jungle Fight. That is 135 pounds, a very impressive feat for her. Defended that belt twice as well. So she does have championship experience outside the UFC. She actually made her UFC debut at bantamweight as well against Leslie Smith. She did lose that fight and then dropped down to 115 pounds, and it was off to the races. She would end up winning her next 5 before running into Jessica Andrade. She does have 2 performance bonuses in her career after a split decision win against Angela Hill and a guillotine win over Michelle Watterson in 2021 and 2022, respectively. And as I mentioned, a former title challenger, she did challenge Zhang Wei Li for the strawweight title at UFC 292. That was in 2023. She did come up short in a dominant decision by Zhang Wei Li, but Amanda Lemos still very dangerous. She is 38 years old, if I'm not mistaken, 38. And at that age, it just doesn't seem like the title is going to be within her grasp. You never know. A couple good wins in this division could get her right back. And as I said, she is booked to fight Jillian Robertson in March. That's going to be a very interesting fight for her. And that would be a massive win if she could turn back someone like Jillian. But in the meantime, Amanda Lemos sitting at number 5, and we'll see if she can continue her title chase. Now, coming in at number 4 is someone whose title hopes are alive and well. She has already challenged for the title and came up short, but I would not count her out, and that is Team Alpha Male's Yan Xiaonan. out of China. She currently sits at 19-5. Her notable wins list is growing rapidly. Tabitha Ricci, Jessica Andrade, Mackenzie Dern, Claudia Gadelia, Karolina Kovalkovich, and Angela Hill. Seems like almost all these women have fought Angela Hill at this point because she's overkill. She fights everybody, right? But Yan Xiaonan won 6 straight fights to begin her UFC career. That was ended by the former champion Carla Esparza. She was 16-1 in her career going up to that point. She did have a nice performance bonus against Jessica Andrade when she knocked Andrade out, and that is very, very difficult to do, to knock out Jessica Andrade, but Yan Xiaonan did do it in the first round. As I mentioned, she challenged Zhang Weili for the title. That was actually the co-main event at UFC 300, one of the most monumental events in the company's history. So a great feat for Yan Xiaonan to be a part of history there. She does have good power, and she's mainly known for her striking, but she is pretty well-rounded. She can hold her own on the ground. I would definitely not call her a submission artist or a dominant wrestler, but she is more than good enough to hold her own against some of the better wrestlers and grapplers in this division. She doesn't currently have a fight booked, but I'm really interested to see what's next for her. She's still on the younger side, and she definitely is still well within reach of getting another title shot, so I really, really hope she can get back there in the near future. Now, coming in at number 3, this woman was on the other side of the most recent title fight, obviously came up short. She is not the champion at the moment, but obviously still in the title chase, and that is Vina Jandiroba. Now, for the new fans, I know that name does not look like Jandiroba. You're just going to have to trust me. Go watch a UFC fight. Go listen to the commentators. I promise you it is Jandiroba. Some of these names, you're just going to have to get used to them if you want to become a fight fan. Some of these names are crazy. But back to Venus. She is 22-4, a very impressive record and some very impressive notable wins. She has beaten the aforementioned Yan Xiaonan, has beaten Amanda Lemos, Lupe Godinez, Marina Rodriguez, and Angela Hill. She did win the title in Invicta. That was all the way back in 2018, defended that title once. Again, for those of you that don't know, Invicta is an all-female MMA promotion on the regional scene. The UFC does like to pull a lot of the Invicta champions over to the UFC. She had a 5-fight win streak recently that led to her title shot against Mackenzie Dern in October. She did come up short. That was a rematch, actually. She's fought Mackenzie Dern twice, and it was competitive, but a clear win for Mackenzie Dern. Venus still put up a good showing for herself. But the biggest thing to know about Jandiroba is her submission game is so crafty and good. 14 of her 22 wins coming by way of submission, only one by TKO. She is just so crafty on the ground, and her jiu-jitsu is next level. She truly is one of the best in this division when the fight hits the canvas, and dangerous anytime that she's on the floor with you. Now, coming in at number 2, this is looking like it's sadly going to go down as one of the biggest what-if careers in the UFC's history, especially in the women's divisions, and that is the former Ultimate Fighter winner, Tatiana Suarez. Now, you think, why what if? She's still ranked number 2. She challenged for the title. Why what if? Well, the thing is, she won the Ultimate Fighter all the way back in 2016 and has only fought 7 times since then. She has been out for massive gaps of her career due to injuries. She missed nearly 4 years from 2019 to 2023 with a neck injury and just constant battles to stay healthy and stay inside the cage. She won 2 fights in 2023 and then disappeared again until her title challenge in 2025. She had 2 canceled bouts in between with Amanda Lemos and Vina Jandiroba. She just can't stay healthy. She lost her title shot against Zhang Weili in a dominant fashion. It was not close, and now she's 35. Whether she has what it takes to stay healthy or not, we will see. She did beat Amanda Lemos back in September. But again, she just has to stay healthy. There's people talking about her challenging for the title next against Mackenzie Dern, and that's great and all if she can get there. I would love to see that fight, but she just has to stay healthy. And at 35, and with the way Zhang Weili beat her down, I mean, her title window is closing rapidly. Now, she does have some very good notable wins. I mentioned Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, Carla Esparza, and Alexa Grasso, the former champion at 125 pounds. But health has just been the biggest thing for Tatiana Suarez. She's one of the most dominant wrestlers the female divisions have ever seen. She is incredible when she gets you on the floor. Her control is next level. But again, she's beat herself, honestly. Her body has failed her. It's not her fault. Her body has just not been able to keep up with the demand that she puts it through. I'm sure she trains super hard. Of course, if she's that good and that skilled, she trains like a monster, but her body has just failed her throughout her career, and sadly, that's been her downfall, and probably the only reason why she hasn't captured a UFC title. The window's not closed on that, but it's closing rapidly, and if she can't stay healthy, that door is going to shut before she even gets the chance to open it. Now, coming in at number 1, and this is one of the more interesting contenders in the entire UFC because the only reason she's not a champion is because she gave up her title to move up a weight class and challenge for the 125-pound championship, and that is one of, if not the greatest strawweight of all time, Zhang Weili out of China. Zhang Weili is 26-4. Her notable wins reads like a movie. Tatiana Suarez, Yan Xiaonan, Amanda Lemos, Carla Esparza, the great Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice, Jessica Andrade, Tisha Pennington, and so many more. As I mentioned, she is a former two-time strawweight champion, actually. She won the belt initially off of Jessica Andrade, ended up losing it to Rose Namajunas, was unable to win it back off Rose, but once Rose lost the title, she came back and won it fairly easily, and then stacked 3 defenses on top of it against Amanda Lemos, Yan Xiaonan, and Tatiana Suarez. She has beat the who's who of this division. Um, she actually lost her first professional fight as well, and seeing how good Zhang Weili is, it's hard to even imagine her losing that, but then she went on to win 21 straight after that, before eventually losing to Rose Namajunas. And for the newer fans, if you wanna go watch a fight to get you into MMA, go watch Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk 1 that took place on March 7th, 2020, UFC 248 in the co-main event. That is probably the greatest female fight I've ever seen, and one of the greatest fights in UFC history, period. That fight was incredible. That's the fight where Joanna's head swelled up, she looked like an alien. Zhang Weili's the one that did that to her. I mean, she is just so skilled, she's so technical, so powerful. One of the absolute anomalies of the female divisions is Zhang Weili. She is just a powerhouse, and for those fitness nuts that are trying to get into MMA as well, go watch her training footage. It is next level. She trains like a superhuman. Zhang Weili is one of the greatest embodiments of this sport. She's learning English as well. It's coming along great. Just such an amazing and charismatic personality as well. Zhang Weili, one of the greatest champions that the sport's ever seen. But using that as a segue to transition to the current champion, the best the world has to offer at 115 pounds, the reigning, defending, undisputed strawweight champion of the world is Mackenzie Dern. Now, I know you see 2 separate flags up there. If you know, you know. She was born in America. She lived in Brazil for a long time. I'm sure the hardcores, you've seen the memes of the accent. Her father is, of course, jiu-jitsu legend Megaton Diaz, a Brazilian. She lived in Brazil for a long time, so she's kinda represented both throughout her career. She mainly represents America now, and I'm pretty sure she lives here again. I wanna say in Arizona, or maybe she was born in Arizona, one of the 2. But I just figured I'd go ahead and put both flags up there since she's technically represented both at different points throughout her career. But in terms of her performance in the cage, she is 16-5 throughout her professional career. She has beaten Vina Jandiroba twice, including her title win, Amanda Hebus, Lupe Godinez, Angela Hill, Tisha Pennington, and Randa Marcos. When she won the title, it was after Zhang Weili vacated. So again, for those newer fans, when a champion vacates, it means they have their championship and they willingly give it up for whatever reason. For Zhang Weili, it was because she was moving up in weight to challenge for the championship in the weight class above. Mackenzie Dern and Vina Jandiroba then fought for the vacant title. Mackenzie won, and that is where we currently sit. She has not defended that title yet. She does not have her first title defense booked. However, I cannot wait to see who it's going to be against. Again, there's rumors that it's Tatiana Suarez. We'll see what Zhang Weili wants to do. I would love to see Mackenzie Dern and Zhang Weili. I would even love to see Mackenzie against some of these young up-and-comers, maybe even Yan Xiaonan. I would love to see that fight again. Um, Of course, the thing about Mackenzie Dern that is the most notable is her jiu-jitsu. She is a former IBJJF and ADCC world champion. Those are two of the most prestigious amateur jiu-jitsu tournaments in the world. Of course, as I mentioned, her father, Megaton Diaz, one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners ever. And she's a very entertaining fighter to watch as well. She does have 6 performance bonuses throughout her UFC career. And she's one that's kind of gone under the radar. She did have some tough losses throughout her career, like Jessica Andrade beat her, Amanda Lemos, Yan Zhao Nan, Marina Rodriguez, but she really bounced back well from a lot of those losses. She never let them get her down too much, and look where she is now. She's improved so much throughout her UFC career. It's been crazy to see her improvement. And honestly, when she won the title against Vina Jandiroba, there were a lot of people that were picking Vina to win that fight. And Mackenzie looked she probably turned in the best performance that she's ever turned in throughout her UFC career. She looked like a championship level fighter, and I can't wait to see what's next for her in 2026. But the reigning champion at present is Mackenzie Dern. I appreciate you guys tuning into this so much. I hope you guys learned a lot about the strawweight division. It'll be the flyweights next, 125 pounds, and I will see you guys then.